Okay, moving on to section 3.3, we're going to talk about student loans. 3.3. Which is something that many of you are in the process of working through or about to be. A lot of you will be going to college, and if you are in the process right now, you know the very first thing you have to fill out for a student loan is called a FAFSA form. Okay, that's the federal, or that's the free application for federal student aid. Free app for federal student aid. Right, and whether you're looking for a student loan or scholarships or anything else, it's like a universal application for all colleges and trade schools. That's the very first place you start by filling that out, and then they can determine your eligibility. Okay. Now, student loans are slightly different than other loans. They have certain deferment periods, okay, whereby there are certain times when you don't have to make the payments on that loan, even though it's been issued to you. Okay, so there are in-school deferments. Right, and if you are currently a full-time student, well, full-time is 12. I think for their purposes, you have to be taking at least 8 credits. You do not have to make payments. You're not required to make payments on your student loan. When you get out of college, there's also other things available to you, like a hardship deferment. Right, like maybe you've lost your job or you can't find a job, you can apply for one of these hardship, and I'm putting 2 R's in these. Hang on, I'm going to fix that. Okay, you spelled deferment correctly now. So there's hardship deferments and also forbearances. And depending on your situation or need, there are some differences between an actual deferment and a forbearance. Okay. Now, there's 2 main types, and there's other subtypes, but there's 2 main types of student loans. There's the federal subsidized, okay, student loan, okay, and if you have a subsidized student loan, that time when you're in like an in-school deferment, you do not have to pay the interest. The government actually pays the interest that accrues on that loan, right? Because while you're in school, they've lent you the money, and the interest each month is getting added to the loan. If it's a subsidized loan, the loan does not get any bigger by adding interest, right? So government pays interest while in school. Pays your interest while in school. Okay? And then there's also the unsubsidized loan. Okay? So in either case, you're not required to make the monthly payments, but with a subsidized loan, the government takes care of any interest that builds up. With an unsubsidized, you're in school, you're still not required to make payments. I mean, you can if you like, right? But the interest accrues from the start, okay? It starts accruing and getting added to your loan balance. Right? It's called interest capitalization. Okay, interest capitalization. So even though you're not required to make monthly payments with either of these, if it is unsubsidized, By the time you get out of school, you will be owing more than you actually borrowed because the government's not taking care of the interest on that. So it might be a good idea, while you're in school, maybe you can't make a full monthly payment, might be a good idea to at least try and make some of the interest payments so that doesn't grow too large, right? And in some of these examples, we'll be calculating like exactly how much interest gets added to the loan. And there's some other terms in there about the Federal Plus loans and Perkins loans, right? And they have their different qualifications. You're all going to find out about that soon enough. But let's go through some of the calculations then, like an example one. So, by the way, while the interest accrues for a student loan, they use simple interest, okay? It's not compounded. So it's not quite as bad as it could be because they're just using simple interest until you get out of school and start making payments, okay? So let's take a look at example one. Yep, yeah. Okay, example one. So an incoming college freshman, Ariana, she received a 10-year, $9,100 federal direct unsubsidized. That's key, right? Unsubsidized. It makes quite a difference. All right, and the way we approach this. So if it's unsubsidized while she's in school, no one's paying the interest that builds up on this. She'll be responsible for it, okay? So while you're in school, you don't have to pay. And by the way, also, when you finish school, like when you graduate or just drop out, even though you're not in school, they still have what's called a 6-month grace period. So it's 6 months after you leave school, one way or the other, that you have to begin, then you're required to start making payments, okay? So we want to know how much interest will accrue while she's still in school and the 6 months after she gets out. And again, they use simple interest. Okay? They use simple interest for this calculation. Okay, so that'll be so the interest that accrues will be her principal, $9,100, times a rate of 4.29, so times 0.0429. And she's in school for 4 years, and then the 6-month grace period, so it's 4.5 years. So the time is 4.5, right? Okay, so that's our PRT. And that interest over that 4.5 years adds up to $1,756.76. Okay? So that gets added to, the $9,100 she borrowed. So now she has to pay back, more because it was unsubsidized. So she now owes, by the way, more than the $9,100. So $9,100 plus that. Well, that's supposed to be 76. What was it, 1756, 76? So the 9,100 is now 10,856. 76. Okay. So, had she been making some interest payments while she was in school, if she could, she'd owe less when she got done. All right, so now example 2, which is based on example 1. Right? They're going to take it another step further. Example 2. I believe they're going to ask us the total amount of interest that she will pay over the life of that loan, especially given that she let the interest capitalize while she was in school. So we know that from example 1, her new principal is going to be that 10,856.76. So she's going to make 10 years, 12 monthly payments per year of some amount, okay? And that'll give the, again, we've done this before, that'll give the total amount she pays back, principal plus interest, and then we'll subtract, okay? So let's figure out the monthly payment on this. And we'll go ahead and use that big juicy monthly payment formula there. So the monthly payment is going to be 10,856.76 times her rate of 4.29, so 0.0429 over 12. 1 plus 0.0429 over 12. Right? So to the NT, so it's 12 times 10. Total payments per year, all over 1 plus 0.0429 over 12 to the 12 times 10 minus 1. And in the last section, hopefully you guys got pretty good at putting this in the calculator. You should get a monthly payment of $111.42 per month. Okay? So that's her monthly payment. So now let's see what the total of all her payments are. And then we can figure out the finance charge. So we'll take that payment. So this is the total of payments. It's the 111.42, right? And there's 12 payments per year for 10 years, so times 10. And her total is 13,370.40. Okay, so now the finance charge. If that's the total of payments, since you originally borrowed $9,100, right? So the finance charge, or the total of all the interest, is going to be 13,370.40 minus what she originally borrowed. And it will come to 4270.40. Right, so like on top of all the other costs involved with going to college, there's another, $4,300 added to that. Okay? So hopefully you understand how to do that. We've done quite a few of these now. We'll recalculate the total interest or finance charge. So let's have you guys take a look at the check, for example, too. Okay, and we use the TBM. All right. Anyway, go ahead and do the check and see if you can work through that. Keep in mind that in the check, make sure you read it carefully. It's unsubsidized. Okay, that makes a difference in things. So pause the video. Be back in a second. And remember, while you're in that period where you're in school deferment, use the simple interest. Okay, simple interest. All right, well, let's see how you did. So we borrowed $15,000 unsubsidized. So the government's not paying the interest, right? So I'm going to do just a principal plus interest calculation. That way I can get it all done in one thing. So the principal was $15,000 plus your PRT for the interest part of it. 15,000 and times 0.0429. And again, it's 4.5 years because of that 6-month grace period at the end. If I do it all at once like this, hopefully you came up with 17,895. 75. Right? So instead of paying back 15,000, she now owes almost 18,000. All right, and I do want to do the extend on here. So take a moment, read the extend, and see if we can answer that one. Be careful, look for keywords when you're reading that. All right, hopefully you've read it carefully, and you came up with an answer of $0. Why 0? because she took out what kind of loan? A subsidized loan. And the government pays all that interest while she's on the in-school deferment. Okay, so the answer to the extend is $0. Because if it's subsidized, the government subsidizes the interest. Subsidizes that interest. Okay? So you need to make sure you read these carefully. Okay? You guys like to just kind of skim, but look for, in the problem whether it says subsidized or whether it says unsubsidized. Let's go on to example 3, which is still continues example 1 and 2, right? So example 3 still this Ariana. Okay, just note it's from examples 1 and 2. Okay, but it's a little different than example 3. It's still an unsubsidized loan. Okay, now she's paying interest during her 4 years in school in the 6th, so she's paying the interest and not letting it capitalize. So now they want to know how much interest she now pays over the term, over the life of the loan. Okay, so if she's paying the interest, okay, then her loan payments will only be based on the original amount that she borrowed. Okay, so if she pays the interest and her new principal is just the $9,100 she borrowed. Okay, so we need to figure out the monthly payment on the $9,100 and multiply that by 10 times 12 and then subtract, right? Let's go ahead and use the TVM for this now. Hopefully we've demonstrated that we can use that formula. So in our TVM, in the N field, we'll have 10 years times 12 payments per year. I% is going to be 4.29 divided by 12. Don't forget to do that. Present value is the $9,100 because she paid the interest, didn't let it grow. When we go down to payment and hit the enter key, you should get negative 93.39. Okay. Well, let's get the total of all those payments over her 10 years. So it's the 93.39. 10 times 12, we'll just do, well, we'll do it this way. 10 times 12 payments per year. And it's 11,206.80. Now to get the finance charge, we just back out the 9,100. Okay. So we do this now. So the finance charge will be this minus the original 9,100. So she pays 2,106.80 in interest. Okay. And I think the question was actually, whenever they asked how much more or less. Well, no, they didn't ask. So we also have to consider the amount of interest she paid. Remember, she made the interest-only payments in school. Okay. So from example 1, that interest came to $1,756.76. If you look back at example 1. So she made enough payments to cover the $1,756.76 during the 4.5 years. So her total finance charge really is the $2,106, right, from the sum of the monthly payments, plus the interest she paid because she didn't want it to accrue. From example 1 was $1,756. Come on, right? 76. So $38.63. 56 cents. Okay, come on, You can do it. There we go. And so that's the total of her interest altogether. Which, by the way, is better than if you look back at example 2, without making those interest payments, she ended up paying a total of almost $4,300. So that does reduce it quite a bit. Okay. All right, let's move on to the check. See if we're comprehending some of this stuff. As I read through that again, the wording is a little bit confusing. What percent of the original, around $9,100, on page 168, would she be paying an interest if she only paid the interest during the 4.5-year period? And you could read that as like she only pays that and never pays another penny again. But I think what they're driving at is if she pays, like in the situation in example 3, where she does make the interest payment and not the full payments, which is what they mean by only, okay? So they want to know what percent of the original amount, right? So remember, percent is part over whole divided by 100. So anyway, I don't think I even need to wait for you. So the part would be the 3863, 56 that we just did, divided by the original 9,100 times 100. So that is 42.5%. You think, well, that seems pretty big though. But remember, that's over a 10-year period. Okay, so you have to divide that by, 120. And you get a slightly more favorable rate. All right, so now on to example 4, which is again based on examples 1, 2, and 3, still with Ariana. Okay. Example. Come on. Good grief. Number 4. Try not to give you guys another reason to make a video compilation of my freakouts. Trying to stay calm with this. Okay, so how does she calculate, like when she's just paying the interest-only payments while she's in school in the 6-month deferment period? How can she calculate how much that payment will be? Well, remember, we're using simple interest, right? And so every day the interest grows, right? So if there's the monthly rate, right? We divide that by 30. Well, that's not so accurate, right? Because some months have 28 days, some have 30, some have 31. So we could take the APR and get a daily interest rate, right? So each day that interest grows by, that percent. And so what we'll do then is multiply that by the number of days in a month. That makes sense to you. The book does it with some like new formula, right? But we're just going to take, I think this will be simpler. They throw some new daily rate formula at you, but why don't we just do this? APR, the annual percentage rate. Oh, this board is, okay. If this keeps happening, I'm going to give you another one for the compilation. APR to convert to daily rate. Right? Well, it's pretty simple. We just take the APR and divide it by 365. In her case, 4.29 or 0.0429 divided by 365. And we'll just leave it like that. I'm not going to simplify that anymore. It'll be some decimal with a whole bunch of zeros and kind of obnoxious. So I think we can leave it like that. So let's do the simple interest, right? I equals principal times rate times time, okay? So the interest, and we're going to use the daily rate. So now we're going to get the amount of interest that adds up every day. So the principal is 9,100, okay? And we'll use this daily rate right here. So we'll use for the R, 0.0429 divided by 365. And the time, right, 1 month, we're going to assume a 31-month day or 31-day month, excuse me. Okay? And I suppose you could adjust it for any given month. So times 31 days, right? So that gives us an amount of $33.16 per month that she will pay in interest. And that's not too bad, right? I mean, presumably you could probably afford $33 a month even while you're in college, just doing a work-study program or something like that, right? But the trick is you got to get this simplified daily rate. I did it differently than the way they did it. So you take the annual rate, divide it by 365, and put that in for your PRT. Okay? Let's move on to this final check. Or not final check. Yeah, it's the last check we're going to do. And we'll do example 5. Okay? And the check for example 4, he's got $7,500 unsubsidized. Okay? Make sure you read these carefully. It's unsubsidized. Okay? So nobody's paying his interest for him while he's in school. Then interest rate, 10-year loan, 4.29%. He wants to pay only the interest while he's in school. Good. Smart kid. His payment's due on the 10th of each month. Okay? He made his last payment on February 10th. And this year is a leap year. Oh, they're really confusing things here, right? So if it's a leap year, there's 29 days in February, okay? Calculate the amount he'll pay in March, on March 10th. Okay, so you really kind of need to look at a calendar here to, you know, figure out how many days are between February 10th and March 10th. Just to simplify things here, that's 31 days because of the leap year, all right? So looking at 31 days, okay? So what you need to do is convert the APR to a daily rate, and then just plug that into the simple interest formula, and we'll see what his interest payment is. Or no, I'm sorry, this is my mistake. This is unsubsidized, so we should probably use the TVM formula. And get the, no, I'm sorry, no, scratch that, wrong example. Yep, simplified interest, simple interest, PRT, for 31 days. So take a second, pause the video, be right back with you. And also, please notice that they said leap year. So instead of there being 365 days in a year, in a leap year, there's 366. All right, so that'll change things just a little bit. 366 days. All right, hopefully you came up with $29.11. Okay, so let's calculate the interest, simple interest, PRT. So principal $7,500. We need the daily rate, so it's times 0.049. Remember, divided by 366, right? Because it's a leap year. And then between February 10th and March 10th, there are 29 days. Again, because it's a leap year. Going to equal 2911. All right, so example 5 is our last one here. So we're back with Ariana again, except this time it's a little bit different. In example 5, the situation now is that she's taking out a private loan, so it's not federal subsidized or unsubsidized. So there is no grace period. There is no in-school deferment or 6 months after you get out of school. So with a private loan, you will have to start making the actual full principal plus interest monthly payments from the get-go. Okay. You want to know what her monthly payment would be, what her total payments will be altogether, and how much you paid in interest. In other words, a finance charge. So we need to find the amount of monthly payments. So it's $9,100, right? So her principal is $9,100, and the APR is 6.4%. And we're assuming it's going to be for the 10 years. Yeah, it's still 10 years, okay? So T equals 10 and compounded monthly, so 12. And I think instead of using that monthly payment for formula, let's use the TVM to find out her amount of monthly payments. So for the TVM, hopefully you're getting the hang of this now. With the capital N, you're going to have, so it's 12 times 10 years. The I percent would be 6.4 divided by 12. Don't forget that. People forget that too often. Present value, $9,100. And we can get our payment pretty easily here. And it comes to 102.87, negative 102.87. All right, so that's her monthly payment. So let's get the total of all her payments. Simple. So it's a 102.87 times 10 years each and every month. And that comes to 12,344.40. 12,344.40. Okay. So that's what she ends up paying back on the $9,100. Pretty stark difference, isn't it? So her finance charge then is going to be the 12,344.90 minus the original 9,100. And it's 3244.40. 44.40. So that's what it costs her to do this privately. So you can see the advantages of taking out the federal loan, subsidized or unsubsidized, because the original finance charge is a little bit more, is up around $4,000. Okay, but she will have to make the payments while she's in school, principal and interest, and that will be her finance charge. And we're going to not do the check for that one, so we'll end it there.